An Igbo man may not look at morality from a biblical concept or from a biblical context, but he understands morality in the sense of unso. He understands that for him to maintain a relationship between himself, his chi, and the entire cosmic forces, that he has to maintain these various levels of unso. So for today, I'm going to be talking about morality in Igbo spirituality, morality in Igbo spiritual practices. And as we're going to understand this various aspects of morality, we'd also have to understand why so many things are actually happening in our society, because we've actually removed ourselves from these various aspects of a morality which we refer to as unso. So as we're going to discuss it, all I want you to do now for me is just to give me a thumbs up and also subscribe to this channel if you're interested in understanding Igbo spiritual practices. So what is Nso? Nso here becomes a particular system of values, morals, and principles. Now, what are those principles? To us as a person, or to you as a person, what are those principles that you hold dear? What are those principles that you will try to maintain in your life? Now, as a Christian, or those of you that actually believe in the Western or Abrahamic religion, you have to understand morality from the aspect of the Ten Commandments, or from the aspect of sin. Sin becomes where you fall short of those principles, when you lack principles, when you don't have shared value or shared religious values. Now, when you're going against those laid down rules according to the doctrines of your religion, now it could be looked as in a context of unso. When you lack morals, when you lack principles as a person, either coming from a religious aspect or an unreligious aspect, but the whole idea surrounding morality becomes a particular or set of values or principles that you are being socialized into as a person, or you basically self teach or self teach yourself and basically grow into it over time. Now, what basically makes us have these kinds of values and principles? First of all, it starts from the first level of socialization, which starts with the family. The family here, in the sense that the family unit becomes the first aspect of socialization. The father, the mother, the parents, the siblings, the extended family. The morals or values that each of this family has or decides to socialize their children in are the kind of values and principles that a child is going to grow into. The secondary aspect of socialization, which becomes the peers, in the sense that a child cannot just only be socialized by the parents. This child is going to leave his or her parents, go to higher institution, and also meet other people from different other background. So this also means that while a father or a parent would have socialized or imbued a certain kind of principles or morality within this child's consciousness, the secondary aspect of socialization can basically influence that individual by separating that individual from those inculcated values or morals. Now, these values that this child has actually assimilated at this secondary level can be either good or bad, depending in where it's coming from. Now, the third aspect of it becomes the media, the environment that an adult human being has actually got into, and is allowing it to influence that individual, whether right or wrong. Now, these beliefs or value system that are being socialized either from a primary level of socialization, the secondary level of socialization, or the tertiary aspect of socialization can be religious in nature. Now, depending on the kind of religious or religion affiliation of the person's or the individual's parents, can actually determine the kind of value system this child or this individual will definitely have or grow up to basically have on the long run. In an Igbo context, this morality that we're looking at it in wherever context that we're looking at it, the Igbo man interprets this morality as unso. Unso in the sense of ihe onaso, what the individual tries to avoid, the value system this individual has, and he has been grown into that value system and is trying to keep it for the betterment of himself by avoiding a certain degree of pettiness, a certain degree of dirtiness. We call it impito, that can actually erode or separate this individual from his or her spiritual forces. Another aspect of this also is another aspect of this morality also to an individual is ihe obodoye na-asọ. We as Igbo, we know that every community has a particular set of nsọ. Nsọ in the sense can come in form of sacred animals. The kind of animal a community consumes or hunts can be a sacred animal in another community. So when an Igbo man is looking at this morality, in the sense that he knows that in his community there are this degree of morality nsọ that he has to maintain in order to basically derive some sort of a cosmic attention or alignment with the spirits that are resided in his community. Another aspect of this morality becomes ihe chiye na-asọ. Ihe chiye na-asọ could come in an aspect of some kind of edible consumption. Kedu ihe chi gị na-azọ? It could be a certain kind of food, it could be a certain kind of activity. For instance, a dibia knows quite well that his chi and his awo can basically instruct him to avoid the consumption of cassava. Can ask him to avoid the consumption of cassava. A dibia is also aware that no matter what happens to him, he should not partake in this clubbing kind of lifestyle, because those kind of lifestyle disrupts the chi and the awo energy that has been granted to him. So a dibia is quite aware of that. And so now, to an extent, this dibia could be an akajiofo. This means that this person cannot necessarily consume or eat food that are not being prepared in his house, either by his wife or his children. He also knows that he doesn't have any right to stay past wherever he is past 6 p.m. So wherever he is, he has to try to go back home before 6 p.m. And for whatever reason he stays out of the house after past 6 p.m., he also has some certain rights that he's going to basically perform to basically help him to get into an alignment. So this morality or this nsọ chiye na-asọ becomes what keeps an individual, morality's values or belief system that keeps an individual aligned to his chi, to his awo, or to the spirit or entities that summoned him for this cosmic call. Another aspect of this morality nsọ to an Igbo person, adihe ajani na-asọ. Like I said before, every community has what they abhor, which is ihe obodo na-asọ. Ihe obodo na-asọ is also different from ihe aja ani na-asọ, which on a certain degree there is no difference between ife obodo na-asọ or ife aja ani na-asọ. But ife aja ani na-asọ could be looked at in a general perspective, which means that around Igbo culture, the whole of Igbo land has this particular thing about a person or an Igbo person committing suicide. They tell you that Igbo talk more of Igbo onwe, what you call nsane, is something that you should not do. And when in a community or in a family where somebody commits suicide, there are ritualistic rites that the family would perform. First of all, wherever the person hung or whatever mode of committing this suicide that this person used, if it's by hanging, then we all know that that individual will not be brought down. The appropriate set of individuals to actually bring down this person from wherever he hung himself is an Nri, most especially an Inridibia, most especially a dwarf who is also an Nridibia, or immediate, who is also an Inridibia. These are the people that have the right, the authority to actually bring down a person that has committed suicide. Other aspects includes don't commit murder. Murder here could even fall under the jurisdiction of abortion. Do not commit an abortion. All those things are unswanny and it's widespread. Every single community in Igbo land are quite aware that you do not commit murder. So when I talk about unsajane, it's something that is generally perceived in a society. Now others, which also include do not sleep with your blood relative, whether it's your cousin twice removed until you get to a certain place where your community is okay with, the family intermingling. But as part of our spiritual practices, are part of our unso, nobody is permitted or is allowed to have any sexual affiliation with any blood relative of theirs. Now, an Igbo man may not look at this answer or morality from a biblical aspect. He would not look at it as part of the Ten Commandments, but he is quite aware that for him to exist, that these answer are also part of his ancestral commandments. Because in Igbo cosmology, we all know that our first ancestors did not just meet a vast empty land. Before they were allowed to reside within any geographical environment or location, they met up with spirits of the land. We refer to these spirits of the land as Umuagbala. They first of all interacted with them, and those landed spirits gave them the permission to basically live on their lands, multiply on certain agreements. So this permission to actually live in these lands are built on this agreements that we look at also. Therefore, in a community, you could see in a community, and you're being told in a community, do not do a certain kind of thing, do not partake in some certain kind of a cultural activity, because it's against or is part of their nswane or nsobodo. Now, an Igbo man looks at this morality, this nso, as part of his ancestral commandment, which was established by his ancestors before he was allowed to reside or build his own ancestral home that we refer to as Obi, or before he was able to inherit an Anobi and was able to build his own settlement within that environment or area. Now, not just as part of his ancestral commandments, he also looked at his environment and also instituted his own unso as a way to maintain order, as a way to guide his society, as a way to maintain all this cosmic alignment. Now, he knows that as he came inside this environment, he definitely did not just meet an empty land or an empty vast of land, but he also met landed spirits or forest spirits, water spirits, and land spirits. And he made some sort of an agreement with each of these landed spirits. And where these kinds of unso are limiting, he also gave his own, he also instituted his own unso. For instance, now there is a particular kind of unso that is guarding water spirits in the mirror. We all know that for a person, for a woman, or for a man who says that he's performing water spirit work, before this person actually engages with this spirit, there are rights, and this individual has to keep himself on a certain level of purity. For instance, now a woman in her menstrual cycle has no business going to perform a water rite for anybody, even if it is himself, or even to go into all these water bodies and swim, or basically go near them whenever she is in her cycle. And these are one part of unso that is guarded, or that is helping to maintain this alignment with this water spirit. Another aspect of this unso that is guarding this water spirit is an individual who knows that he or she is going to perform a water ritual, a water rite. Even if you're the dibia that is going to perform this rite, you're the person, you're the client that they want to perform this rite on, you should be aware that you'd have to avoid sexual energies. You don't have to be intimate with your partner a day before and after the rituals. Now, when they are interacting with these land spirits like deities or alose that are from their father's house, from their mother's house, ikune, wherever these landed spirits are coming from, our ancestors also instituted a different kind of unso that they used to interact with these kinds of spirits. Now, all these kinds of unso has different aspects and different levels, and each of them are targeted at performing a certain function, not just for himself as a person, but also with the spirits or energies that he or she is actually interacting with. In comparison, Westerners, it's unfortunate that Westerners, having their own aspect or their own kind of religion, do not understand the need of maintaining these different aspects or different types of unso that our people, either we invited or we instituted on ourselves, or as a part of an agreement that our ancestors made with their own forebearers or with the land spirits that they actually met when they came into an environment or when they migrated into a location. Now, these white men do not understand the connection, the relationship that we have with Annie, with the forest, with water, and in their own society, they do not have this kind of respect. It's up to recently that they now became conscious of their own environment. When they talk about the ozone layer depletion or whatever kind of natural disaster that are trying to prevent, which I think is kind of late for them, now they're trying to go into green energy. Now, this kinds going into green energy is not even at the benefit of we Africans, that they are basically stealing our own natural resources in the name of keeping their society clean and basically harnessing green energy. But what they did here is they carelessly destroyed their own natural environment because they wanted to use and use and use and use, forgetting that the relationship that we have with this environment, with these natural resources, are things that are not quite finite. That's why in Igbo society, it's not that our ancestors did not find use for all this abundance of natural resources within our immediate environment, but we were cautious enough to take what we need for our immediate gratification and actually reserve, with the hopes that the future generation would have a dire need of these other resources, and they do not have to harness and harness and harness, but they would have to actually live for the next generation. And this is a logic that the white man does not understand. They do not understand this interaction, and they do not understand how the Igbo society functioned. That's why when they without a proper or prior or full exposure of what the Igbo people practices, our spiritual practices, our spiritual knowledge, our interaction, they basically deemed it or demonized our spirituality without having or without even acknowledging or getting the full scope of these practices and what they all entails. Therefore, while the white man limits his morality or his answer to just the 10 Commandments, the Igbo man extended to everything around him. His own answer does not just have to deal with him or how he interacts with a fellow human being, but also how he interacts with the environment, the animals within that environment, which is animal conservation. I still believe that Igbo were the first people to understand animal conservation. Even if we use animals for, sacrifices, we also conserved a certain species of animals within different community. These animals are conserved. These animals are regarded as sacred animals. We also have sacred lands that we refer to as Ofia Lose. Now, we also understand the interaction with these natural spirits, even if they don't even reside within a particular area. But because there are some herbs or the things that we see in that forest, which has some certain kind of properties, some certain kind of characteristics, we deem that environment as sacred. Like all these kinds of Ofia Lose that we basically have. The last interaction I had with a Dibia on this particular Ofia Lose, he said to me that when you move into that kind of a forest or lands that we refer to as Ofia Lose, there are a lot of crops, there are a lot of animals that we may necessarily have never seen in our life. And even those that we've seen outside that forest, and we see them inside that forest, that they are all as huge as possible, because no human beings are allowed to hunt those animals inside there. He also made mention of when the white men came and tried to basically force their way into one of these Ophia Alose, this reserved sacred lands. They tried to force themselves there, and they took the female keeper of that forest and basically slashed off her dreadlock because she refused to give them access to that environment, which according to him, they later embarked on that journey, but most of them did not return. That's the information I got from him pertaining this particular Ofialose. So the point I'm trying to make here is that the white man limits his answer to just a 10 commandments, and this is what is happening now. The what have been preached to most Igbo Christians in the church is often being limited to these 10 commandments, this morality, this 10 answer that the white man has introduced to us as Igbo. But when we look fully, or we try to understand the interaction that an Igbo man has with not just himself and his natural environment, but even exists to cosmic forces that an Igbo man does not see and can just experience or feel their influence, but we've never truly experienced them, except for very gifted people who have actually experienced these deities by seeing them in their dreams, or basically seeing them physically in their physical reality. So there are special people, there are very gifted people that have actually had these kinds of experiences. But for some of us that might not even experience or basically come close to this, having any kind of experience, our consciousness are being limited to a Christian interpretation of what morality should be. And this is one of the major problems that we're suffering in Igbo land. Most times when we look at the things that don't exist back in the day, like this whole thing about rape, that have been kind of predominant in our society, and most times the perpetrators try to kind of put themselves out when they will try to push the victim shame or victim blame by looking at the victim and talking about what the victim wore and what the victim did not wear. But if we look at our Igbo ancestral society, we'll see that these women were not fully clothed like how we wear all those things that we wear, turtleneck and all those kind of very religious or very Western kind of dressing that we basically do. But in those days, these women were not raped. These women, because those men at that point understood also, they understood that if you do something like this, it's against the natural principle. It's against Nsonwe. It's against Nsobudo. It's against Nsane. It's against Nsochinawu. And it's against Nsoalose. So when these people understand all those things, they hold themselves. These men are being trained to be men in all ramifications. Being men in the sense that that when you want to have access to a woman, you have to go through the normal rites, the normal ritual, the normal or cultural processes of getting a woman to yourself, which becomes the right that has been instituted in the community or within how a family actually go about marital rights and marital processes. The expressions of these moralities, or nso as we refer to them, are one of the key factors of the things that basically guides an Igbo man. When an Igbo man reacts or when an Igbo man acts in a certain way, we tell ourselves what makes this person so confident in his action, so confident in the way he's doing things. Now, an Igbo man that maintains this answer knows that he's in an utter relationship with his cosmic forces, and he knows that by maintaining this answer, by maintaining this agreed alignment with him, that they will always have his or her back. So when an Igbo man reacts, he's reacting out of the expression that by keeping his own part of the agreement, his own part of the deal with these cosmic forces in the form of Unso, therefore they also have their own agreements to keep. Because some of the reasons why these Unso are quite important is these Unsos are things that they agreed upon in the sense that a person would refer to his chi and say, I would avoid this thing for you as a part of sacrifice. This sacrifice does not just entail the other aspect of isi chi to chi, or other sacrifices that are targeted at how to acknowledge the chi or the other forces, but by also instituting this answer to his or her chi, it also becomes a form of agreement. Our people will tell you that ejira ko bara ejekumwo. This means that your morality, if you fall short of your morality by probably committing murder, by probably committing any form of crime within the Igbo context, you do not approach a deity, you do not approach a cosmic force. Another instance here is the reasons why Ndi Igbo do not wear anything. They don't wear their shoes, they don't wear their slippers or anything. They basically connect to their ancestral spirits barefooted. Now, this is a clear indication of your innocence, a clear indication that you are meeting or you're approaching this force here with an open mind, not a mind that is filled with hatred, not a mind that is filled with trying to be malignant or to use your knowledge of a certain kind of ogu to basically fight another individual. So when you're trying to interact or when you're trying to reach out to this deity, you being barefooted means that you're connecting to Ajani, who is also the custodian of these moralities. Now, whatever moralities whatever answer that we institute in any Okwalose or for any ancestral spirit or landed spirit, the place where we sediment this morality is basically in an Okwu Ajani. You'd have to inform the Ajani that this is what we've collectively agreed on to be our Nsobodo. And by agreeing collectively that we're going to preserve this kind of practices or beliefs and value system, now Ajani becomes a powerful force that is now standing in to ensure that no matter who you are, you obey or you adhere to this communal Nsane. Hence, why occasionally or recently we now see people coming back to basically affirm what all this they're saying. If you commit all these things, let Ajani be the judge, let her be the person to stand again, let her judge you and basically affirm her punishment on you, whether when she sees you or when she finds you wanting. So these are the way how we express morality that the white men came and they were not able to actually see. All these various aspects of Unso are things that the white men purposely ignored. They purposely did not see it as something that they should quite understand. Now, what am I trying to say here? In the 10 Commandments, they will tell you, do not take what does not belong to you. Now, in the Igbo context, it's still something that we have. We know that you shouldn't take what does not belong to you, and especially do not take another person's wife. Now, one of the worst things or worst answer that a person would defile as a man is by sleeping with another man's wife. So when the white man are saying, do not take what does not belong to you, do not take another person's wife, or do not take, that try is just as if they are reaffirming this nso that we as Igbo people already know. And there are different and several aspects, like do not commit murder. These are the things that keeps our society, this particular kind of nso. Imagine for us living in a society where we don't have an nso that is focused on do not kill somebody. That means we'll basically use anybody that we see for sacrifice, because we know how powerful it is to channel a life force towards a configuration. We know how powerful it is because of our access to the cosmic forces through our or through other channels that we have in Igbo spirituality. But what we do here is that because we are aware of it, we are aware that it's against our nswane. These are the commandments that our ancestors have given to us. But because it's not coming from a Western view, from a Western viewport, it has been demonized, and it's now basically reinforces this mentality or this interpretation that Igbo spirituality has things or is an aspect of the devil. Is being demonic because it is unchristian. It doesn't follow the Christian norms. Now, because it doesn't follow the Christian norms, it has to be something else. Now, this is a mistake on the part of the white man and on our part for not looking at these various interpretations of Unso, and knowing that for a community, for a culture to actually prepare itself and institute these various expressions of Unso and are able to adhere to them, if not, they'll face a dire consequences. We should be able to know that this is a society who truly knows the difference between right and wrong, who knows the difference between good and bad, and chose to project this also in order to basically maintain order and maintain that everybody try as much as they can to basically adhere to this also. And while they're adhering to this also, they are being in a good standing with their cosmic forces. To conclude here, in our cosmology, we do not believe that once you've gone against this answer, you should be killed or you should be destroyed. That's why our ancestors also instituted the ritual cleansing of Igbo. Now, this means if you commit a certain kind of answer, what you should do here is to meet the appropriate people, a dibia from Unri, or an ezane, or an akajofo of Ani, to help you through the ritual process of Igbo. Now, depending on the kind of answer that you defaulted or that you spoiled, it may be so. Depending on the kind of the one that you did, it also depends on the kind of Igbo process or procedure that they would basically carry or perform for you. So if you've gotten or if you got any value from this video, please subscribe to this channel and comment or drop any video specifications that you want me to work on. If you're having any confusions on Igbo spiritual concepts, on concepts like Awo, Chi, Chuku, these interactions, if you have any questions and I've given you value, comment and follow. And on to the next video. Yeah, guys, yeah.